Glad to have you back, and you're still watching Nigeria Decides. We still have our guest here, and we are discussing security matters. Today, President Muhammadu Buhari met with security chiefs after 2 hours of meeting behind closed doors. The service chiefs told the press that they are ready for the gubernatorial and supplementary election to hold this Saturday.
Now, the question is, what security measures or errors were made during the presidential elections? What should be done differently? These are things that we're going to be looking at from now. So we'll come back to you, gentlemen. We still have Peter Ebidian and Dixon Osaje in the studio. Before we went on that break, we were obviously talking about how we manage security situations in the country. And this does not just... it does not have to do with the army. We have the police, we have the NSCDC, we have customs, we have every paramilitary and military facility, and the DSS. All of these people have a responsibility, but it seems like we're I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. These security agents are a bit more laid back or are too careful because, you know, Nigeria is more like an egg. If you drop it, it's going to scatter. Or if you touch this person's, you're going to cause war. We're no longer dealing with the law, the Constitution, and what it allows and what it disallows. If, for example, my duty is to protect a border and not let things come in, and I'm not doing that, should I not be made to face the music? I've seen the movie, Rules of Engagement. A tiny mistake can end you a court-martial. But it seems that these things don't necessarily happen. We have a lot of media trials, you know, there's so much drama, pomp and ceremony, and then it fizzles out. What do you think is responsible for that?
We in this country, we don't follow cases to a conclusive end. If you see what's happening, the Russia-American election fraud against Donald Trump, I think this is the 4th year now, or the 3rd year now. The media house, the security agency, they are still on top of the matter. And that is why, when we are talking about security, the media has a big role to play. Because when the media, for instance, now reported an incident, there should be a consistent follow-up on that incident. Look at CNN, what CNN are doing, for instance, on the Donald Trump matters. They kept following it back to back, back to back. Now, the problem we have in this country is because the security agency has been politicized. And that is the truth, because everybody believes that if I come on power, if I come to power as the head of any government agencies, I should be subjected or submitted to, I should submit to the president or whoever appointed me. Ooh, that's mental slavery. We should just kick from that thinking, because if we continue in that way, we're not going to achieve what we're expected to achieve. The best bet for this country is that I want to see a country whereby the security agencies will have that power of autonomy to carry out actions, to take decisions. Because most of the incidents that happen in this country, like the last elections, the one I'm very interested in, that I can even take to the ICC, I will personally take to ICC, is the Demola incident that happened in Agor.
In Lagos, here.
In Lagos, here. Because I don't want the media to keep quiet on that incident. That incident must be followed to a conclusive end, because I believe that a particular party, peradventure, sent in, and if that party is in power or is not in power, I'm following that matter tactically, and we know where we're going to do about that, because already the presidency has already said that if you steal ballot box, pay with your life. So I want to know if that guy is going to pay with his life. But what we need to do in this country is this: our security agencies should remember that they are serving the 180 million people. They should remember that their core duty is to protect lives and properties. If, for example, I am in power and I'm the chief of army staff, for example, I should not, because of a man or 2 men, betray a nation. Because the truth is that when you leave that office today, history will remind you why you were still in government.
Okay, gentlemen, now, the meeting lasted for 2 hours. That's the president's meeting with security chiefs. We know the chief of defense staff, army staff, naval staff, the acting IGP were present there.
Okay.
What lessons do you necessarily think we should have learned from the last February 23rd elections that we had, and then ensuring that the security apparatus operatives don't even think of making that same mistake, because there will be a large outcry or outlash from the Nigerians. We saw how the security played out. We saw the deployments, over 300,000 police. We saw the engagement of the military. We even had troops of soldiers coming into the country just to assist. What lessons should we have learnt from last 2 weeks Saturday, and then ensuring that this Saturday, March 9, does not become another mistake?
I think the mistake, and I don't think it was a mistake, to be honest. I think it was a tactical issue. The whole elections were militarized, and this is what the civil society organizations were complaining about before the elections proper. How would the president come out and say, deal ruthlessly with? I mean, the security agencies should not have interfered in the manner that they did. We've seen some states, there are videos available on the internet. I think it was in Abonima and River State, where there were engagements visibly. Fire, the kind of ammunition that was exchanged, the gunfire that was going on in Abonima, you could hear the soldiers were involved. Again, in River State as well, where we saw the governor of River State allege that the GOC of the Amphibious Brigade in Port Harcourt had been trying to get him killed. And then in the course of actions, we saw where the army came and gave a press conference.
Side by side, the announcement of results.
And that was the most unprofessional display I have seen in this dispensation of democracy. And then while that was happening, there was a video that we saw of a soldier slapping one of the people that were one of the governor's aides. It was live on camera, and we ought to remember this is why I agree with you that our soldiers, our armed forces ought to remember that in a democracy, their ultimate allegiance may not be to the CNC per se, but to the Nigerian state, to the Nigerian people. You've seen the way we've seen. For instance, I remember someone told me in the Ago incident that the policemen withdrew when the thugs came to try and snatch the ballot boxes. I don't think that withdrawal was accidental. It looks like a coordinated attack. And it's going to take a lot for people to believe now that the government is not going to do the same thing in these elections, which probably, where the stakes are even higher. So I'm hoping that Nigerians, the apathy is not so much that you don't come out to vote in these elections on Saturday, but the damage has been done. We've seen even the president's language before the elections. His language was, I mean, in comparison to another candidate who was asked, what happens if you lose? He said, well, I'm a Democrat. And then the president said, I cannot lose. That sort of gave the feeling that the security agencies were going to do everything they could to ensure that he did not lose the elections. And I mean, the politics has been
give the security apparatus or operatives the benefit of the doubt that they are independent despite their appointments by the president. Now, really, what level would you expect that the security operatives, be the military, because they are part of our elections, whether they are far or close by, they have to provide us support? What level of strategizing do you expect from them this time around so that we don't get a situation where they are necessarily overwhelmed? Because what we saw last 2 Saturdays was an overwhelming situation. 1 secure, 2, 3 policemen at a polling unit unarmed cannot necessarily protect the ballot boxes.
You see, what transpired last week Saturday is just like a movie. And I'm so disappointed that our security agencies could descend so low.
And even adding to that, do you not think that we should also be having engagements towards reinforcement? Because I know we rightly mentioned during our last discussion that it's the fact that we don't have reinforcements being called for or a rapid response, then all these perpetrators of evil.
Let's put it this way. First of all, let's acknowledge the owner of the business. The election is INEC's business. It's INEC business. We need to inform the security guys. It's not your business. This is not your game. It's not even calling the service chiefs trying to brief them. It's not their business. Now, the Constitution, that is the Electoral Act, permitted INEC to call up the security agency if they care or not. It's not in the president's power to project or impose security agencies on the INEC. No. Section 29, subsection 3, mandated INEC that if peradventure you need a security backup, the first point of call is the Nigerian police. So the Nigerian police are the lead agency.
But the Nigerian police you are calling out on, they had over 300,000 police personnel deployed across the country, and they could not even gather their acts together.
That is to say that there's a sabotage.
So the military has to intervene.
No, sir, let me tell you something, please. The military has no business in election.
They have no business.
Yes, constitutionally they don't have any business. When you go to the Electoral Act, I told you this INEX business. Are you with me? When you go to the Electoral Act, Part B of that subsection 3 says that if need be, INEC observers discover that there is a threat somewhere, they can call up the military. And the objective of the military is to escort the election materials and ad hoc staffs to their area of responsibility. For what purpose? To protect the material and to protect those ad hoc staffs. When you get there, you back out. You can have a conduct environment. Now, in an area like the Northeast area, we can waive that scenario. The military can be within that area for the necessity because of the operation going on and terrorism going on that place. So let's not deceive ourselves. This is INEC's business. This meeting they had today or so, I'm expecting the report from the Nigerian Army, because every agency that participated in that election last Saturday should send INEC reports. You need to send them a report. The IGP has sent his own report. The Nigerian Army should send their report. The Navy Air Force should also send their report, so that we will have access to that report, analyze it, and know what's happening. Because, truth be told, the security agency compromised, because you don't project security men in every given area. Why do you need security? For protection of life and property in GRA Keja. Are you telling me you need security in GRA? In this your street? Are you telling me you need security in this your street? That is why security mapping comes to play. Security mapping in the sense that 2019 next Saturday is coming. I'm expecting INEC to have carried out a security mapping as of today. They should be done with their security mapping. What is security mapping? Analyzing the threats and vulnerable areas whereby they perceive dangers. Maybe hotspot like Port Harcourt and other states. Then you brief the security agency. These are the hotspots.
What happens in situations whereby you necessarily don't pay as much focus to some areas, anticipating that you wouldn't have violence? Then what happens there if violence breaks out? Were you expecting Okota to be as heated as it was?
Nobody was expecting that.
Exactly.
And that's where security comes to play. Now, it happened in Okota. That will be an area of interest in the next coming election. Because before you talk about security mapping, the area you are mapping initially was a peaceful environment. So it's like a migration. Now, if you are telling me you want to project all the security agencies in the whole polling unit, you are putting Nigeria at risk. Nigeria will be invaded, because who is going to protect me? Who is going to protect you? If I go out and vote, who is going to protect my family at home? We need to be sensitive in projecting all the security guys, because what I told you, some people have phobia. Like in those days when we advance, you see people start running. We're not going for them. We're going for another business. They start running away. Why are they running away? Because
the army actually is, for the average Nigerian, a soldier is scary, especially when he's not in a barrack.
Yes.
You obviously know that his training is different from a police officer's training, which is he's trained for combat. And the police officer is trained to deal with civilians. So, of course, it will be scary and can cause voter apathy. But let's go to Mr. President's meeting with service chiefs. We just want to take a quick look at that meeting. And when we come back, we'll let you tell us what you deduced from that meeting or the things that they have discussed.
Taking notice of the fact that the people there are ready to be violent. So we have increased the number of personnel, security personnel, that we've posted there. We've increased the number, and we've increased our intelligence outfit that have been posted there, so as to help us identify those people that are trying to cause problems, so that we take them out of the environment before they cause the problem. So there's an increase in security personnel. Investigation is ongoing. There's an investigative team that has been set up, headed by a commissioner of police in charge of legal. They are compiling the case files, they're investigating them. At the end of the investigation, the police, in liaison with ANEC, will prosecute them.
All right, we're back. The security men are discussing security. So we, David and I, were just, doing our job as the interviewers. But gentlemen, you listened to the police chief and what he had to say. Is it a debrief of sorts of Mr. President? Because they said they were going to just talk about, how the security situation in the country is looking like and preparations for the Saturday elections, etc., etc. But I heard you say something, and I want you to reiterate it. They're supposed to send INEC their reports.
For sure. Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah, sure.
As we speak, are you aware if they have all sent in their reports?
I only heard about the police. IGP. All of them staying here, meeting with the presidency is irrelevant. They're supposed to meet with INEC. It's INEC's business. The president has a stake in the electoral process.
Even the political parties as well. INEC should brief political parties I mean, security chiefs ought to have a meeting with the political parties and say these are the things, the lapses we observed the previous election. Going forward, these are the things that we hope to do to ensure that there's safety for everybody. Unfortunately, I doubt that will happen between this briefing that we saw on TV and the election day proper. I doubt it's going to happen. And it's going to keep making people skeptical of how well the security agencies will respond to possible threats.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. Does the president not have a right to meet with these service chiefs as he leads up to elections?
As commander-in-chief, he has a right to do that.
Because you're saying he has a stake in the elections. Well, he's already been declared president, so what stake does he have in the election?
Well, he has a stake in the issue because, for instance, there is no how, even the allegations that have been flying around, with videos that are available, evidence available, shows that to an extent, even his political party has been indicted from the evidence on or of the incidents that took place, from the violence that took place over the election period. Evidently, he is a party in the matter, as they say in law. So even the information that has been shared, the fact that there's no briefing of all the political parties, it lends credence to the fact that there's a bias in favor of the man, and the reports that have come will be skewed in a certain way and manner. What I recommend that these agencies do, because I'm not even aware that even the foreign observers that are still on ground for the elections have been briefed by security agencies on the plans going forward for Saturday's elections. If that doesn't happen, you're going to find that people will be skeptical.
You would not be surprised when the security operatives will tell you that they can't brief you on their strategy to ensure that they provide security comes
No, they can't brief you on their strategy, because when they brief you on their strategy, you are going to adopt a countermeasures.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now, you listen to the acting IGP there, and are you impressed by statements saying that 2 weeks after the elections, that investigations are still ongoing for the arrests they've made so far, all those who engaged or perpetrated violence in different areas and misconduct? And are you expecting we would have any stronger stance, especially if we are to take a cue from what the president said, that the peace and sanctity of Nigeria is most important, and that yielded that big, humongous explanation saying that anybody who snatches a ballot would have to pay with his life. But people have said, well, the law will take its due course. Do you think 2 weeks of investigation is enough of an excuse, or you expect a sharper stance to send a message to everybody across that Saturday is not a joke?
I was thinking by now the people he is investigating are cooling off in detention. Detention is kirikiri. I was thinking they are cooling off there, because when you saw how the CJN was transited.
It was a hastened process.
Yes, on Friday, the letter came up. On Monday, was already in court or thereabout. I don't have a problem with that. If we can apply such kind of speed in criminal cases, it's good, because by today now, we'll be running to the 9th day after the election. So what I am expecting for him, I don't know the investigation you are carrying out. You want to find out about what, or you want to get more people? As you are getting these guys, send them to where they belong. As you are getting them, send them to where they belong. And as you are sending them, you need to inform us, because after today, I'm afraid we might not even hear again, because I've not seen most of those people on television that has been arrested. I've not seen most of them that have been arrested. But I'm also aware of a particular case whereby some guys were arrested in Bayelsa State that molested one of the police officers, which I know is one part of their interest. But the IG himself spoke well. I don't know, I kind of have a confidence in this guy because of his background, coming from an Interpol and having a kind of international exposure. And that mentality alone, I believe, is going to drive the Nigerian police. Do you think
that mentality drove what happened last week, Saturday, utilizing intelligence?
Yeah, it does. The issue with most of the report we had last week, Saturday, was coming from the military. The police angle, apart from
minimal.
It was minimal, and you should expect that. Let me just tell you the truth. In every given situation, you must expect violence. The truth is that you cannot eradicate criminal elements. If you want to eradicate criminal elements, the legal system will pack up, the Nigerian police will pack up, the Nigerian army will pack up. So criminality is a way of life. The essence why we professionals come aboard is to mitigate it. You understand? To the barest minimum, to as low as reasonable, acceptable. So that is the core essence.
Okay, now quickly, Peter, now we know, according to reports that have made the rounds, that the areas where we saw violence really break out were places that are supposedly strongholds of certain parties. Now we also have the trend or the new development that has arose where we don't have some parties able to field their candidates come this election. What level of interaction or play out would you expect when it comes to the security of those states? Let's talk about Zamfara, Rivers. We also have Kano as well recently.
River State is a peculiar case. It's been a hotbed of violence for quite a while, even as a legacy of the militancy era. But now we've seen the politicization of all the conflicts in the state. The fact that we've heard on record certain members of a political party say that this is a war, and we saw the outcome of that in the presidential elections. Now, because the public will be playing, just thinking like a strategist, the public will be playing to spoil the entire thing. Ruin it for my opponent. If my opponent is winning 5-0 and it's 2 minutes to the end of the game, I might as well play dirty.
Well, we had a guest yesterday who came from River State, and she was trying to analyze the situation, and she said that she doesn't think that the attacks on soldiers yesterday in Abonima was a reprisal attack. She thought it was a calculated attempt to make River State,
inconducive for
elections, because a certain group of people were aggrieved that they are not participating.
Absolutely, same thing I'm alluding to.
But then again, it's it's a theory that is might not necessarily hold water.
That is our own position.
Yes.
And if I want to buy in, I would also want to go with her, because psychologically, you don't expect some group of criminal elements to go. It's not in the spirit of criminal elements to carry out a reprisal attacks
on the army.
On the army, it's not in their core drive. You understand? Because they make use of opportunity, and that is why security agencies' sole objective is to cut off criminal opportunity. Because for any criminal incident to transpire or to take place, opportunity must be given. If there's no opportunity, you can't strike. If there's no opportunity, you will not succeed. So, if what she had said, I want to believe that. That's my own opinion. I think I have right to my opinion.
Okay.
Because I don't see governorship election coming in, and that state is a stronghold of the political party. They will not want to intentionally disrupt the next coming general election. So that is an attempt for government to project more security agencies in that place, so that the environment will be agog and people will be scared and everything. Then people want to have their way.
But the way the state elections are also being held, it's quite keenly contested, considering who is going to be the next governor of state. And now we see the godfathers now stretching their arms like octopuses and ready to ensure that it's sinking at every vantage point, just to ensure that they have their word mean the last word. Now, what level of engagement, of communication, of mannerism do you expect from these political actors this time around? Do you think we'll still see this trend of massive rigging that has always been the trend, some would say, this time around in the state election, or you would think that the approach would be it's not a do or die affair?
It depends on the state. Let me take this. Let's look at Lagos, for example. We know that there is brewing tension between majority groups like the Igbos and Yorubas. We're seeing it play out online, where you see some Yorubas in the city of Lagos insist that...
That's why the national chairman met with the Igbo community and said, well, they've gotten assurances from the Igbo community that there wouldn't be any sort.
But that by itself is not enough, because we're still seeing some of these things online. If you monitor the internet, a lot of hate targeted towards Igbos is available online, and it's not just so Lagos is peculiar. You have non-indigens. In fact, one of the things that hurts me about the city of Lagos and its peculiar place in these elections is that it is now being tagged as a battle between Yorubas and non-Yorubas. You see things, or you hear statements like, oh, the elites in VGC
we're still talking about Lagos State and the internal workings. The candidates who were supposed to initially contest, that's between the governor and then the the person who is being presented now. That's Babajide Sanwo-Olu, as well as Governor Ambode. Now, these are still Yorubas in between, and it's just because of the fallout that you might lose favor from the powers that be. But now, what level of communication do you expect from the powers that be to ensure that we have free, fair, credible elections? Because it still sounds quite foreign to us.
On the streets, you still hear the agitations by, I mean, for instance, let's point to Oshodi. Let's point to Lagos Island. Traders from the Igbo stock were prevented from opening their shops. That alone is a recipe for disaster in this election, because now you've pushed the people to the wall, and the only way of fighting back is by ensuring that they go to the polls, prepared to be violent if necessary in order to defend their votes.
Quickly, because we also are trying as much as possible to make people come out for this election. We're hoping that Saturday will be a far cry and something way better than what we had on the 23rd. In one sentence each, what should the people do, and what should the pulse be from the authorities?
Well, the people should still believe in their powers, because they have a role to play in governance. They should also protect their votes. They should be prepared this time around. When I say prepared, I'm not asking any of them to carry arms and ammunition.
Please
but
don't.
You need to prepare your minds, prepare your emotions and every other things. And however, the security agencies, they should also remember that their sole objective is to protect Nigerians. They must not play partisan politics. They must sit on the fence, not to support either A or B party. That is professionalism. They must up their game in terms of professionalism.
And Peter?
My take is this, from the electorate point of view. We have no option than to go out and cast our votes. I believe to a certain extent that the governorship elections and state house assembly elections will be less militarized than the presidential elections, which were of higher stake. Now to the government, what I believe and what I desire to see is clear evidence that they're trying to make a departure from the mistakes of the past. That can happen in the issuance of press statements, because there's still time to have town hall meetings, to send word out on the streets through credible leaders to assure the people that we've learned from the mistakes of the upper Saturday and it won't repeat itself this time.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. We've been speaking with Dixon Osagie, he's a security consultant, and Peter Abedian. Thank you very much. He's also a security consultant.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you, Dave. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you very much. And the conversation continues right here at Plus TV Africa. Remember to send in your own contribution at all of our social media handles. That's at Plus TV Africa on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can also comment as you watch us live on YouTube at Plus TV Africa. It's time to take a quick break, and the Hard Talk continues in just a moment.